I believe this is what ambi controls are for, right? Vance with Vbd-Retail here, and today we are comparing the new B&T Bt15 Mod2, which is a B&T Hodge AR collab, and we will also be going over and comparing the Apc 223, differences between those two guns, what makes them unique, and my thoughts between both. So, starting out, we're going to be talking about the Bt15 Mod2. This is an 11.5-inch AR style rifle, and since there's a lot of ARs on the market, we're going to have to get a little bit nerdy about it. So, starting off, we've got a Hodge rail, which even still has the Hodge Clover marking on it, as long as B&T markings. And what's interesting with this rail is, one, the S-Lock design just adds a lot of rigidity. If you've never felt a Hodge rail, I suggest you do. There is something about the anodizing finish that is just really nice. I almost want to say it feels soft, but it's obviously not. There is also an indexing pin along the top that goes into the upper receiver. So while there's these anti-rotation tabs on the side, which would still allow for a little bit of movement if your rail were to rotate, there's that pin that just fits right into the upper, completely eliminating any chance of this rotating on you. Now, the receiver set on this gun, completely ambidextrous. Both sides you have control of your bolt, and you have release, mag release on the left side. You cannot lock the bolt back with this button here. I maybe call it ambi and a half for those controls, but it is made of the C405 material that Hodge is known for doing, which is a pain in the ass to machine, but they still manage to pull it off. You've got your flared magwell. Now, this comes with a LaRue MBT trigger in it. I have changed that out for a Geisley, not because the MBT is bad at all. I just have weird preferences and prefer the Geisley. I think I like the trigger shoe a little bit better than LaRue's offering. And moving into other small parts, the safety selector. Now, I put a radian selector in this, and there was a little bit of, I guess, confusion in when these guns came out. So first I'll tell you, this is serialized for the year 2023. Just came out in 2025. So these were a long time in the making, and if you know much about Hodge rifles, they tend to take a really long time to come out, which may have been a part of that. But regardless, the first one that I had come through had a Badger safety selector on it, but it also had a standard mil-spec bolt release on this side, whereas this one came with a Battle Arms development safety selector, and it has the Badger Ordnance enhanced bolt release on that side. Personal opinion, I think we should have stuck with the Badger safety selectors on all of them. One that's true to the Hodge gun itself, and the Battle Arms lever, especially on the left side, is just awkwardly long. So it's an AR, it's whatever, just popped a new one in there to my preference and kept on rolling. I also changed the grip on this. I changed this grip on everything. This is the Z-Wolf grip. Came with a Magpul grip, I believe a K2. They got so many models. Nothing wrong with it. It's, again, just preference. And it's an AR. It's something that you can do with anything. Now coming to the rear here with the castle nut and this retaining plate, you've got an FCD retaining plate, which is really nice, really cool. It gives you these QD options. One issue that I did notice is that if you collapse your stock and you're using a QD mount in this slot back here, it does push the button in. I haven't had it come out, something that I did notice. Also, speaking of FCD, you do have an FCD forward assist added onto here. Really easy to identify by the dimples. So, neat little piece that comes on. It'll have a carbine buffer tube with an H2 buffer in it, your Magpul stock, Magpul dust cover. Then it also comes with a B&T branded bolt carrier group, which looks to be a lot like a Radian bolt carrier group, which can't confirm or deny, also looks very similar to Hodge's bolt carrier group, which seems to also be a Radian bolt carrier group. So while this gun comes out, we've got a mix match of some nicer brands. Now, one thing that at first kind of concerned me when I took this thing apart is that there was nothing marked on the barrel. And if you know anything about Hodge guns, which is somewhat the allure to getting this gun, is that they use a tapered barrel profile. So I reached out to figure out what's going on with the barrel, and what I got back was that these are B&T made out of German blanks. They're chrome lined, they're still tapered, and I had to put that to the test. Tapered barrels, continuous bore taper going down the barrel typically adds some velocity onto whatever projectile you're shooting. And when I took this out to compare it, what I did find is that this is running consistently about 150 to 200 feet per second faster than what your typical 11.5 runs. So while that barrel was B&T made and not Hodge made, whatever they did, however they cut it, whatever profile they got in there, they were still getting that velocity increase that your typical Hodge barrels will show you. Next, let's talk about the APC 223. Not something that you see too often, but nonetheless, it's another short-barreled 5.56 gun, and it's got a bit different features than your typical AR. Starting out, it's a short-stroke, piston-operated firearm. You can see in there, there is a piston rod coming down, and at the end, you have an adjustable piston. Your adjustments on this one, we've got 1.1, 1.3, and 1.5, which should be normal setting, suppress setting, and then your adverse setting for if you get this thing really dirty or you just really want to throw brass as far as humanly possible. Low ejection, medium, high. Looks like we went from 4:30, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Assuming those mean millimeters, so your gas port size is looking at a 0.49 to a 0.049 to a 0.06. So tiny little gas port, and that actually really helps with how this thing feels. Typically people say piston guns have more recoil because they say that there's more reciprocating mass in there. This gun fires at 600 RPM. Now that's going to change depending on your ammo. Could change a little bit depending on your gas setting. What I found is I run this on the lowest gas setting using a reduced back pressure suppressor, and in the summertime this thing locks back on every single mag just fine. Now in the wintertime it's kind of 50-50, so I actually have to crank it to the normal setting while using this suppressor, which is pretty fair because these suppressors don't really add much back pressure at all. Now what's different about the APC here too is that you have an actual folding stock and it does not block the ejection port. So that means that you can legitimately fold this firearm and use it to conceal it, get in and out of vehicles, whenever you gotta store it, tighten space up. But as you can see, it will also still cycle, eject rounds, all that jazz. Now it also does have complete ambi controls. You have your bolt release, which is the same position on either side. You have your mag release which is in the same position on either side, and your safety, obviously. Folding charging handles, which are non-reciprocating on either side. This is truly ambidextrous, and everything is lined up, so it's as ambi as it can really get. Now let's talk about some differences with the APC compared to an AR. So this is going to be your bolt carrier. The bolt looks very similar to an AR bolt, but you have a shortened extractor there. There are some little differences, but basically what you're going to have is this is going to be all your mass moving backwards. Now let's talk about the differences of this APC to an AR and what's going on the inside. So at first you're going to pick up this APC carrier and bolt. You're going to think, dang, this thing is heavy. But this is all that's moving back, so it is all at once. I popped this on the scale and this came out to 1 pound 3 ounces. And I figured that actually does seem a little bit heavy, and maybe that has something to do with people saying pistons seem to kick more. But when you take an AR bolt carrier group and you consider that you're also moving the buffer back, now this is an A5H0, but when I pop these both on the scale, we're at 1 pound and 2.8 ounces. So that's kind of a moot point. We got about the same amount of mass moving forward and back. Obviously, you could account in for the piston rod up here that's going to have to move a very little bit to slap this carrier, but you also have different buffer weights. So with the APC, this is going back and it is riding along. This is your recoil spring in here, moving back down to the rear of the gun where there's this hydraulic buffer at the end. Your hydraulic buffer is basically taking out everything else that your main recoil spring doesn't handle. And if you slap this hydraulic buffer harder, it's going to resist a little bit more. So one pro of this APC versus an AR, as you can see, I took that whole lower off and everything that we just talked about fits in the upper here. So if you get a weird stovepipe jam, something going on in there, unlike with an AR where your receiver extension or buffer tube is attached to your lower, and now your bolt carrier group is bridged in between your upper and lower, your gun's stuck together until you can open that. Usually that involves mortaring a charging handle, saying a lot of profanities, getting really mad, and eventually you'll probably pop it out. But the APC, it's all contained up here in the upper. So all you have to do, if something is really that bad, you can just pop the trigger group off and you can just take this thing apart. Now you have all access to the inside of your gun when you need it. So I'm going to give the APC a win on that aspect. Now let's talk some pros and cons about the differences in these guns. Pro with this APC is that you can just adjust it on the fly, depending on what you're shooting, the conditions you're in. If you're starting to experience malfunctions because you neglected your gun, or you dropped it, or it's just ridiculously cold out, that's all it takes. One little twist, and there you go. Now, if it's not functioning and you already have it on the adverse setting, I feel like you've put yourself in a very bad position. You've probably forgotten about this for a very long time, or you decided to try swimming in mud. Other aspects of this gun that are a pro is you've got this long rail going across the top. It is much longer than an AR's receiver. Let's see here. We'll just grab this one here. A little difficult to see, and I'll move this sling out of the way. But where the pick rail starts, you're getting about 4 or 5 extra slots out of the actual receiver rail versus an AR. So you've got more room for accessories. You can move things farther up, which putting a red dot farther up is usually a good thing. Obviously, there's some AR options that run with monolithic platforms like this Colt that we have here. That rail's going all the way across the top. So while that is a point, I think it's more a point between these two specific guns and, well, most ARs, unless you're into the small series of Colt monolithic uppers, LMTs, and there's a few other, like the polylithic uppers that have a full-length rail going across the top. Next, This uses AR grips, so you can change that out to whatever you want. That's just simple, easy, nice for you to customize. It does already have the flared mag well. Trigger is an odd one. So, coming from the factory, honestly, I wish this trigger was a little bit better. It's not the best. It's not awful, but it's not the best for the price that you pay. Now, B&T sometimes offers models with Eltman triggers in there, which seem to work. And I have heard, now I haven't personally done this, I'll probably try though, is if you take the strike plate out inside of these lowers and do a little bit of modification to a trigger pack, you can fit Geisley and other AR triggers into there. Now that would be a significant improvement. Downside is, you're modifying your lower, you're modifying your trigger. It's a lot more work than it needs to be. If it just used a common trigger that we could just slap on in there, it would be a little bit nicer. So that point is going to go to the AR there. Another pro to this is it is legitimately folding. That is the end of your receiver, and you are not taking any critical components from your gun and breaking them in half to fold it. Some designs for the AR, yes, you can fold them, but you might not be able to shoot them. It's, you know, this platform was designed to literally just end right there, and you can get true telescoping stocks for it. There's a variety of options you can get, or just back plates and put all sorts of different stocks on there. One thing that is a con with that is you're mostly at the mercy of B&T, and I'll tell you that their stocks get a little bit expensive, especially if you end up having to get a new piston on the back, because this one uses a hinge, and say I want to go to the telescoping stock. There's a bit of a downside to that. You gotta pay to play. Now there are some third-party options that you could put on there and probably be fine, especially if you use something that adapts to this. But overall, this whole gun itself, it's not like an AR. It's its own thing. It's outside of really this grip and the magazines that it uses. That's it. You're kind of at the liberty of B&T. There may be some companies that make various parts and pieces out there, but if you end up breaking a bolt, if you end up ruining your piston, needing a barrel, I mean, you are at the mercy of having to go to B&T. And that's just because, well, really, it's just not as popular as the AR. Even if somebody started to make aftermarket parts for it, they got a really limited market of people who have these. Now the AR, what can I say? I mean, almost everybody's got one. If you're watching this video, you probably have one too. And I mean, you can change out anything you want, whenever. You can find replacement parts. That is a big pro of the AR system. One con that we did talk about earlier is if you get something where your bolt's kind of stuck halfway in there, you are seizing up your upper and lower together. Not exactly great, but with a little forcible persuasion, usually you can break that apart. Though it could do something like break your charging handle, cause some other issues. Now another downside to the AR, which is kind of a downside, not really, it is because there's so many options there that you end up buying a complete rifle, majority of the time, you're not going to leave it how it came. I didn't. I mean, I spent a lot on this thing, and I end up changing the grip. I want to put a different bolt carrier in it. I want to change the buffer to start fine-tuning the buffer weights. So, while that is a pro, I can do whatever the heck I want to it, it's kind of like an added hidden cost there. Whereas, you get something like this, sure, it's a bit expensive, but once you got it, you kind of accept that you got it. This is what you're working with, and you either like it or you hate it, and that's what you've got the whole time. A big pro to this system is that you can tune it. While I don't think that APC needs any tuning, I really think that you can jump from the low end of gas to obviously just keep going up. This thing, when it came from the factory, it had a carbine tube and an H2 in it, and it ran fine. But I'd say it's combat gassed. And really, anything coming out of a factory is combat gas. So that's not a negative, but I shoot a lot, and I like to tinker and play with things. So obviously I changed it up and made it a lot smoother and its cycles to what I enjoy and like to find in my own rifle. And being able to do that is nice. Granted, while you can adjust the piston on there, sure, you can do that, but with here, like, I can change springs, I can change buffers, I can change all sorts of different ways to get the end result of what I'm looking for, whereas I'm kind of limited while using the APC. Now let's talk accuracy between these two rifles. This APC 10.5-inch barrel, I'm running 2-to-1 MOA consistently with 55, 62, 77 grain, whatever you run through it. Whatever they did with this barrel, it's magic. I think 2 MOA for a 10.5 is pretty dang good. 1 is insane. Now, I also shot this. I threw a scope on this, but I forgot to take my bipod and bag, so I was shooting off of a sweatshirt, so may be able to pull a little bit more out of this. Also probably pull a little bit more if I upgraded the trigger. I think that's a little bit of a drawback, but overall, thoroughly impressed with the barrel in this thing. This thing absolutely kicks ass. I think I have a clip somewhere out. We were shooting this at 500 yards using the red dot sight and just 100% hitting a full-size IPSC. That's awesome. This thing, it shoots straight. It shoots very, very well. Now, the accuracy on this BT15 Mod 2, it's a little bit of a different story. Like I said earlier, how this thing was running fast. Shooting 55 grain GG&G ammo, I was getting 2,920 feet per second average. That is fast for an 11.5-inch barrel. So this thing is sending rounds out screaming. But it so far does not like 55 grain. Now granted, I'm saying it doesn't like it because really cheap ammo, I was pulling about 3.5 MOA and decent 55 grain. Get it down to like 2.7 MOA, 2.5 MOA. And again, I was using a scope, wasn't using a bipod, wasn't using bags, but when I moved to 62 grain and 77 grain, that's when we started getting below 2 MOA and some even at 1 MOA. So it's definitely capable, but so far doesn't really seem to like 55 grain ammo. Now, I need to shoot this more because I've noticed from when I first got it and till now, the more I shoot it, the more it's been tightening up, but still a little bit disappointed in the fact that your typical cheap range ammo is 55 grain. Sort it low to high and run it. It shoots good enough for your 100, 200 yards and in, but it just doesn't have that precision on those lighter rounds that I would really expect out of this. Cost-wise, this comes out for the base rifle, not everything attached to it. You're looking at about $3,200-$3,300. Now, that's a little bit pricey for an AR, but it's also not exactly pricey compared to what all it comes with. And the fact that that's probably the easiest way and most obtainable way to get a Hodge rifle, essentially, which is dang near impossible to get. It even took B&T 2 years from having the receiver made to getting the rest of the parts in 2025 to release it. Whereas your APC with this stock on it, you're looking at just shy of $4,000. It's like $39.50, so it's definitely expensive. It is a high dollar rifle. I mean, you're paying for something that's unique and you're, kind of stuck to one manufacturer with it. But it does have a lot of cool factor and you can fold it up. It's definitely something that you can bring into places that typically an AR can't, where you have to start sacrificing some barrel length and still never get to quite as small of a package. Now, if you were to ask me which one of these two rifles would you pick, I'd probably ask you a few questions first, like how many ARs do you have? Because I do think this day and age, everybody should have one really nice AR. And this is right out of the box, one really nice AR. Now, Yeah, you might want to change the buffer weight on it. Sure, that's a little bit more of a cost, but even with the fine tuning and really picking your preferences on here, you're still going to be at a lower cost than the APC. Me personally, I'm a bit bored with ARs. Well, this one is super nice, and yes, I'm definitely going to keep it. I'm actually going to probably get rid of some of my other ones because now I do have this. Whereas the APC is just different. It's unique, and quite honestly, it shoots very soft. A cyclic rate of 600 rounds per minute is awesome. You can get an AR down to that. I have, and I love it. But right out of the factory, that's great. I would pony up for the APC just because of its cool factor, because it's different, and really, it shoots well. Granted, as I stated before, the trigger, not exactly my favorite, but the fact that I can go in there and take the time and do a little bit of modification to be able to put in something like a Geisley trigger, a LaRue MBT, or really I could drop in an Elftmann if I wanted to. It's not something that really kills the whole deal for me. So, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe, share. Check out our website if you want to. Leave some comments in the section. Somebody wants to ask why the heck I modified this to compare it. It's because I can. It's an AR. You're allowed to do that. I would modify this to make it as best as I possibly could, but I just don't really have that option. So, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.